So the purpose of this rally today is, in the wake of the increasing anti-Asian hate and violence, we really want this to become a space for our Colorado community to unite and speak up against systemic racism. We hope you can leave today feeling inspired, connected, and catalyzed to take tangible steps for change. And then so when I mean tangible steps for change, I mean showing up in more places than just a rally. So it's awesome that y'all are here, but I'd really encourage you at this time, if you can, take out your phone, because we have a website that you can go to make sure that you know what you can do next. The website is coasian.carrd.co. The link will show you a lot of different ways that you can get involved today. So to start, we wanted to have a brief moment of silence for the lives that were lost due to anti-Asian hate, as well as recently the mass shooting in Boulder. So if we could take a quick moment of silence to reflect. Thanks, folks. We do have some chairs to my left-hand side. Forgot to mention, this is for our elders. It's for folks with young children or anyone that can't stand for a while. Feel free to come over and take a seat. To begin, I would really love if you could look around. And I would want you to look and maybe wave to someone that you don't know. And then I want you to keep up your right hand and repeat this pledge after me. I promise to protect and stand up for you as I would my own. So I want you to look around again. Maybe see someone else that's new to you. Maybe wave, and then say again. I promise to protect and stand up for you as I would my own. Asians have been here since the beginning of the foundation of America. We were here building the railroads in the late 1800s. We remained here after hundreds and thousands of us were interned unfairly during World War II. And we will continue to stay here despite everything that's going on, because we belong here. I'd like to do a quick call and response. So this is how it goes. Every time I say belong, I want you to say we belong. So let's give it a shot. Belong.
We belong.
All right. So Asians belong.
We belong.
Black, Indigenous people of color belong.
We belong.
Queer people belong.
We belong.
Differently abled people belong.
We belong.
You belong.
We belong.
Thank you. We're gonna get started with our rally today.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mitakiapi Vicky Eagle Machiapi. Sichangu Oyanke Matahan. Heska Elwati. Chante Washte Nape Chiuzape. My name is Vicky Eagle. I am from the Sichangu Lakota Nation. I live here in Denver, Colorado. I greet you all with a warm handshake. I am both the daughter of a single-parent immigrant mother and an Indigenous daughter from the Rosebud Lakota Nation. I know what it's like to live and be in two cultures, like many of you, triggered by the news, seeing our women murdered by white supremacists. When I saw a single-parent Korean mother work for their child to provide them the life they deserve, to work additional hours because we needed to get by, I know how emotional and how that cuts deep into our souls and into our communities. Our mothers are everything. By matriarch, I am Japanese from my mother, who comes from Tokushima, Japan. And what this land means to me and understanding in the Lakota way of responsibility. I was asked to give a land acknowledgement today, given my background, and for that I am honored. And today I feel called to take this time to be in community and express what is in my heart. Therefore, I will not give a typical land acknowledgement that prides itself for the simplicity of naming the tribes as a diversity checkmark, or as a way for whiteness to continue to ignore our histories by doing the bare minimum. Today, I want to give the proper acknowledgement to this land and the people of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute nations who were forcibly removed from their land by Western expansion. I stand below in front of you today, in front of Western expansion that is literally above this thing right here. For those that don't know, this is literally Manifest Destiny at this tower. Yeah. Today, the two Ute nations that reside in Colorado are the Ute Mountain and the Southern Ute nations. I call to point of action to the land and our history. Above me, the Capitol high ivory tower is the image of a white man with the sun behind what is known as Manifest Destiny, facing westward towards expansion and towards gold. In my mind, I've grown up in these streets in the Capitol Hill, reminded that the presidents are named after the streets, and driving west, the street names are named after tribal nations who suffered under this very ideal I stand below you today. Violence to this land is not new to Indigenous people because our land has always been sought out for exploitation. Violence to Nchimaka has been a long history and reflection of how society treats Indigenous women and the earth. On November 29, 1864, the Sand Creek Massacre occurred, where Colonel Shivington carried out the massacre of 150 Cheyenne and Arapaho, women, elders, and children, when the men were out hunting. It was planned intentionally to hit these tribes during the most vulnerable times. The troops replied by opening fire and cannons. Before departing, the troops burned the village, mutilated the dead, carried the bodies' parts as trophies. Their dead bodies were paraded on the very land you stand in front of us, right through the 16th Street Mall, brought here in front of the Capitol. The Cheyenne and Arapaho were told they could raise a white flag of peace and told that they would be safe. The massacre happened anyways. Governor Evans was supposed to protect these nations as they surrendered. To this day, it took 150 years for the University of Denver Evans Study Committee to create a report that held Evans culpable for the massacre, and to this day there are settlers who do not agree with that finding of that report. White male patriarchy and excused behavior goes deep into the United States, where it lives in the land and in our bodies. Excuses as Evans wasn't there, he isn't culpable, this was the act of Shivington, is the same excuse as a gunman having a bad day, stated by the military police institution that also continue to defend whiteness and the massacres to this day. Evans has a street named after him. Evans has a mountain named after him when these places already had their name. Excusing white men has been a history for 150 years to the land and violence. If Silas Soule had not ordered the massacre to stop and stood up against what he saw happening to innocent unarmed, more of the Cheyenne and Arapaho would have died that day. With that said, I ask that every November we remember the Sand Creek Massacre, the spiritual healing run that takes place during everyone's Thanksgiving holiday. The Cheyenne and Arapaho youth take turns every year running from the massacre site and ending here a course of 3 days, running hundreds of miles to come here to stand on this step, to heal for 21 years, right? To heal the land and heal their people. I know the history of violence against women of color and gun violence goes deep. We know that this isn't the first time. Colorado itself has experienced gun violence, even this week at the King Super grocery store, the Batman shooting and shooting at Columbine. All of these are symptoms of white colonial mentality that runs deep into this state. I know this history very well. As an Indigenous woman, I am told that 1/3 of Indigenous women will experience sexual violence in her lifetime, and that we will go missing and no one will ever report our names on national TV. As an Asian woman, I have been seen as a sexual commodification for the white male gaze, and that these white terrorists will be known as having a bad day. What does it mean as a Japanese Lakota to experience hypersexualization, fetishization of our culture, and to be seen as disposable under the structures of white male cis-colonial patriarchy? It was in deep reflection that I finally been able to put the words to my experience that this fight is not ours alone, but needs all of us today. I ask that when we do a land acknowledgement in the future, to take a step further, that we learn the history and the cycle of violence and realize the fight for humanity and our liberation needs us all. This isn't and shouldn't be about oppression Olympics or all lives matter, because we want to understand how anti-Blackness impacts the way we are dehumanized, police, and surveillance each other. It is not about who struggles more, but how our struggles intertwine and how we can grow together and in crisis when we care for each other. I call today to fight for Black lives, fight for Indigenous people to have their land back, and fight against Asian hate and violence, the Islamophobia in our communities, against the detention centers that we are currently seeing from our Latinx communities who are facing violence in the same way they interned our Japanese American people. I ask we advocate for our trans LGBTQ two-spirit peoples. Realize this moment today needs us to work continuously past today. In conclusion of my land acknowledgement, again I ask that we put the work in to learn the history and the land that we are on and continue to show up. Kilamaye.
Hi. My name's Grace Clark, and I am a musician here in Colorado. And I feel so honored to be able to come and sing today and to start out this rally. One thing I would love to ask is if right now we could all just take a nice big inhale and then an exhale. So let's just take a good breath together. Ready? I hope that this song can be a really protective and healing way to start out our rally and to set some positive intention. My friend Rihanna Fairchild is going to be singing along with me, and we're going to be singing a song called Directions.
Grandmother, I'm calling on you. Need your guidance now. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hi, my name is Elise Singh and I am 11 years old. I am an Asian American and both my mom and dad are Chinese. I was born in Durham, North Carolina and moved to Denver in 2012. Growing up as an Asian American hasn't been difficult. Attending a language immersion school has made me feel better about myself and about my culture. I'm surrounded by many different people from different cultures, and that has made me really open in the way I think. Some things that bring me happiness are learning Chinese dance, learning Chinese with different people that have different backgrounds, talking with Chinese teachers, and so much more. As you can see, my life has been relatively comfortable. So let's talk about what happened in Atlanta. 8 people were killed and 6 of them were Asian American. There are so many words to describe this tragedy and none of them can express it enough. Scary, racist, upsetting, disappointing, confusing, and many more. In my mind, I feel scared. I used to think that where I lived and the community I lived in was safe. Now after what happened in Atlanta, I feel scared and that we should have more and better security. Thinking about what all those Asian Americans, young and old, and what happened to them, I'm fearful of what could happen next. After hearing about this tragedy, I feel strongly about how people look and treat one another, even in this modern world. The world is just so different after all this happened. It's hard to think of ways that we can become one big community without hurting each other and being violent to each other. Actually, there are some ways we can be one diverse community. Even though we may not all be the same race, we can become one big community. Try talking to someone that is not the same race as you. Try learning about different people's cultures or even become friends with someone that is not the same race. Now, this may be hard because you don't know what people are going to say about you and what they might mean to you, but the only thing you can do is try. Even though my sister is not here today, she wrote a poem about diversity. Her poem says, different directions we discover, various challenges we conquer, different cultures we admire, circumstances may change someone, but be proud of who you are and there's no one as special as you. I want to now thank you all for coming to this rally, and I want you to believe in yourself. You don't have to act or be like anyone else because who you are is good enough. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. All right, so audio check. Can the people in the back hear me? Woo! All right. So my name's Harry Budisidarta, and I am the Executive Director of Asian Pacific Development Center. Thank you. I was gonna begin by saying that the past 2 weeks have been very difficult for our community. But that's not really true, is it? Because the past year has been difficult for our community. The past 2 weeks have been excruciatingly painful for all of us. All of you here have heard the numbers. Almost 4,000 incidents of hate crimes have been reported throughout the nation, from the East Coast to the West Coast to all of the towns and states in between. Colorado is not an exception. We have seen our share of hate crimes ranging from online bullying, online harassment, spitting, vandalism of businesses, and even physical assault. I am glad to see all of you here because this is the time for us to send a message that this is not acceptable at all. Our community is strong. Our community is resilient. We are not alone in this fight. That's why I want to thank all of the allies that have reached out to us. Representatives from the Black community, the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the LGBTQ community, the Hispanic Latinx community. Everybody reached out to us because as communities of color, we all know what it's like to be victims of hate crimes. So I just want to say thank you to all of our allies, but I also want to say my biggest thank you to the wonderful leadership at CORE for organizing this rally and all of the town halls we have had. This is the power of community, and this is what happens when women of color take charge. But let's have an honest discussion. Hate crimes is not new to our community. Even though the incident spiked starting from last year, if all of you remember, our Denver's Chinatown was destroyed back in 1880 when a mob of white men came in and destroyed all the businesses and killed one innocent man. This is not something new to us. And this is not gonna be an easy fix. I wish that I have an easy solution for all of you, but I don't. After all, hate crimes is a reflection of how entrenched racism and white supremacy is in our country. Just like it affects all of us, it will take all of us to work together to help uproot this problem once and for all. So here's my call to action for all of you. The first one is self-care. Please engage in some self-care. This is a long, long marathon. And as much as I appreciate all of you being here today, we do need all of you to be involved in the long run. We need all, this is a long and entrenched problem that will take many, many years to fix. My second call to action is to stand with us and fight back against the stereotype that Asian communities are silent and passive, which is why I'm glad to see all of you here showing that we are not silent and we are not passive, damn it. And my last call to action is to get involved. Joy mentioned that website, CARD. Please go there, check out all of the different resources that the leadership at CORE has developed for us and all the different ways you can contribute. We need all of you. Our community is strong, our community is resilient, and together we will prevail. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come here. Whether you're an ally, hang on. Oh, I'm short, sorry. Whether you're an ally, whether you identify as part of the AAPI community, whether you're mixed race. I like that our opening speaker identified as Japanese and Native American. Whomever you are today, your being here is step number one. Joey is a friend of mine. She asked me to put something together and come down. As I said, my name is Lily Griego. I'm here today as an ally and to speak to you about allyship. So, pardon me, I'm going to wear my glasses. I've aged a little in the last couple of years. And I'm owning my age. The other thing I'm going to share with you is that I'm not shy about public speaking. My body takes over and you will see my hands shake, but I want to share something with you. And I want to tell you, I have a girlfriend who calls me llorona because I cry all the time. That means that's okay if I cry. It's an emotional time, and as your ally today, speaking to you, I'm feeling rage, I'm feeling sadness, I'm feeling happiness, pride in the Colorado community for seeing the numbers here today, but it's a lot of emotion. And so it's okay to feel all the things that we feel. So bear with me. I heard it on the news. Another shooting. I heard it. A man targeted Asian-owned businesses and took the lives of multiple people. My day didn't stop. Emails to do, phone calls to make, things to get done before the sun goes down one more time. That night, we learned the fate of multiple Asian women, and just as we began to process the loss of human life, we heard a sheriff's deputy say of the murderer, he had a bad day. Later, I read this article that led me to a young man who said the following, and this is where I want us to resonate. I don't want us to resonate on the words of someone who hasn't taken a moment to be an ally, who hasn't taken a moment to understand who is and what is it to be the other. I lost my mother last night. I don't know how much info I even want to release about what happened, but it's on the news, and as most of you have seen, she was the strongest pillar in my life for me and my brother. And to lose her to scum fills me with hate. That doesn't encompass even a fraction of what that stain on humanity holds. She lived her whole life only to support her 2 sons, all on her own, and to see her taken away from us like this is unfair. I can't describe how I feel. The words of a young man, I can't describe how I feel. He's already said he's filled with hate. Back to his words. She'll never get to see me and my brother married, own homes, graduate college, and see her grandchildren. As of now, I'm looking for any direction, advice, and spreading awareness to the reality we live in. Its reality is disappointing to see how much hate there is. Again, if anyone knows the misfortune to be in this situation like this, that could inform me on how I am to go on, I would appreciate the help. And to fellow Asian Americans, please stay safe. # Stop Asian Hate. I'm a mom. I'm your neighbor. I'm your community member, and I thought, oh my God, look at this young man without his mother anymore. The picture he used to phrase this sentiment was his mother cusping his face with her beautiful hands, her beautiful profile picture, looking at him with hope of the journey that lie ahead for him, and probably carrying with her the spirit and the joys and the hurt of everything it took to get her to that day for her sons. That's wrong. It's wrong that she's not here. I'm heartbroken, I'm frustrated, I'm infuriated. I worked hard for my family to succeed in this country where my grandparents saw signs that greeted them at doors, no Mexicans, no dogs. Dogs, the other. And again, I find myself feeling emotions for a world of violence and random acts of hatred of what we called out, hatred of Asians, hatred of women. How do I cope with this anger? How do I help this young man who sounds lost in this world? I want to thank you, the host committee, for inviting me here today. I'm beyond grateful that someone thought of me to speak to you today about what it is about being an ally and understanding what that is. An ally to you, the AAPI community. I believe I was asked because in my 2 most recent professional roles, I reached out to your community early and often. I asked my teammates, let's go talk to the Asian American Pacific Islander community. And they said, why are you starting there? That doesn't make any sense. Do you understand what a small voting bloc they are? I said, that's all right. You know what? They're voters. And you know what? You find yourself in a race and you find yourself down to needing that 1%, 2%, 3% voting block. Guess who you already visited before? Guess who you listened to before? Guess who you understand and see on the street and say, hey, I know you. I see you. That's why you do that. It's about relationships. The history is what led me to do this. You see, my grandfather was a World War II veteran. But not as a veteran, I've always wondered what it is about being a veteran, serving in the war, that pulls you together with people who don't look and reflect you in the mirror. That's a sense of brotherhood. It's a sense of sisterhood. I haven't done it myself. I can't speak from experience. I've read about it. I've studied about it. And I remember after 9/11 when we would pass each other on the road, we wouldn't cut each other off. We'd slow down, ease up on the gas and say, come in front of me, my sister. Come in front of me, my brother. Because we shared a sense of survival. We shared a sense of heartache. We had been attacked and now we were in it together. But why do we have to be in that mood, in that sense of survival, to understand what it is about humanity? We should understand that humanity when we are at our strongest, not at our weakest, and when somebody has knocked us down onto our knees where we are crying out, I feel hatred for the man and the community and the world that took my mother. So today I ask you, whether you've served in the military, whether you've served as a veteran, to start to view the Asian American Pacific Islander and all humans with that sense of humanity. I ask you to remember what you're feeling today and what you're taking away today. Yes, if you can donate, donate. Yes, if you can volunteer time, volunteer time. Yes, if you can do something in your employer's office to bring in somebody to teach diversity and equity and inclusion, do that too. But today, my ask of you is this. As an ally, go home today, write down what you feel today. Hang it up on your wall, frame it, look at it in 6 months when all of this is gone. Remember in a year, in 5 years, teach your kids, teach your sisters, teach your parents what it is to be an ally to the Asian American Pacific Islander community. As a Latina, like you, I walk out every single day in the world and I cannot hide in plain sight. My identity shows on the room before they get to hear me speak. My identity shows in the room before they find out I'm smart. Or I may not be smart. I'm funny. I may not be funny. But they know who I am before I've even opened my mouth. That means that they're judging me before I've done any of those things I just mentioned to you. So be an ally, because it's now time that we see this community is in pain. They're suffering, they're pissed, as they should be, and they need support. So as an ally, I hear you. I hear your pain. I hear your rage. I will share your stories, and I will lift up the history of who you are as Americans. Let me say that again, as Americans. The first picture I took here today was the gentleman walking through the audience with the American flag. And I want each and everybody of the AAPI community to understand I see you as Americans with me. Your story is our story. Your story is the American story. I love this country and I love, love, love the land I stand on. But that doesn't mean that we're perfect. So today I brought Dolores Huerta with me, and if you don't know who she is, she signed my shirt. So if you don't know who she is, she did work with Cesar Chavez, and I want you to know the story of allyship before I part this stage. Long ago, farm workers, and you can go to Twitter nowadays and look up farm workers, it's still happening. Injustice in the world, injustice in this country, injustice in this state. Long ago, the community farm workers came together, Filipino and Mexican American. They found strength in their numbers. They found strength in their solidarity. They found strength in their allyship. And because of that strength, because they came together, they actually achieved their goal. They got better wages. They got a union. They organized. They held the employers and the people empowered accountable. In order to build strength, they did something so simple. Not just meeting, not just creating credit unions, not just empowering the people working the fields, which, by the way, I don't know that I could ever do because it's such heartbreaking work. So knowing that there are people that don't understand what it is to come up from the bottom, to be an American, to try to climb and climb and climb and get to the top. people came together and they did this one simple thing to close out every meeting, to show solidarity, to show unity, to understand that there are layers to our identity that still do not take away the fact that we're all human. And it amplifies our humanity. And it's this simple. I'm going to show you, and we're going to do it again together. I didn't need to show you.